Good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Thank y'all so much for being here today. Boy, do we have a wild show for y'all this afternoon. I am super excited to have Dr. Dennis Carroll back here on the channel. We're going to be diving into something today that is always in the back of my mind, always. And I started going through some of my old cases, some of my old remote viewing targets. And by old, I just mean some that I've done a while back. And I've been seeing a pattern of government cover-ups, okay, potential cover-ups, a lot of things that just are kind of, that don't really quite make sense. And I'm connecting all these dots. And then I'm hearing stories of, let's say, potentially the CIA. I'm just going to say three-letter agency, sending operatives to other countries to do missions where people are being attacked by local legends and lore, mythological creatures, and but it's all a big fake operation. Well, it's a real operation with, you know, vampires are blamed for it and stuff like that. So we're getting into it, y'all. This is a deep rabbit hole tonight, or today. It's not even tonight yet. It's 1 p.m. over here in Georgia right now. But this is a deep rabbit hole that we're going to be going down today. And it makes all the sense. And we're going to make it make sense by the end of this show today. I promise y'all. And you're going to see all the dots connecting just like I have. And at least I hope you will. And of course, I do have a former law enforcement official here with me today, Dr. Dennis Carroll. It's going to be a really great show. So if you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows and everything I'm doing, please go over to my website. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. I got some archives over there. And I just updated that today. I got some more updates to do. I got to add a couple of events to my calendar, but you can find all of my social media links over there. And also I do have a Patreon if you guys would like to support my work. And thank you to all my members. Also, I have a shop on Etsy. It's called War Woman Goods. And if you guys would like to become a channel member, we call that the Hunt Club. And I do exclusive videos and content over there on that. So thank you to all of my Hunt Club members. You guys are the best. And we do have a good time over there. And I like to talk about spiritual stuff over there on the Hunt Club. So if you're into that, come meet us over there. Okay. All right. Well, oh my gosh, I got my hat. I was debating whether I should wear my hat today. I'm all dogmaned out today, y'all. Check out all this dogman gear. I got it at the Georgia Bigfoot conference this weekend. I got on a shirt. It's a little much. I like to kind of mix it up and I don't like to match that much usually. Okay, but nonetheless, it's fun. Actually, I kind of got all that for my son, but I'm going to wear it. He's at school. Okay, so I got all the the Dogman merch. And let me tell you, when your kid starts growing, my kid's only 10, but we're wearing the same size clothes right now. So, and the same size shoes, y'all. And I got big feet. So I know that youngin's going to be big when he gets older. But anyways, yeah. So I buy stuff and I kind of want it for myself, but I'm like, oh, I'll share it with my kid. So it's kind of what's going on here. But nonetheless, let's get into our show today. Okay. And we're going to be talking about something that's a little risque for YouTube. Okay, a little risque, but I'm going to go there anyways. CIA psychological operations, or PSYOP for short, involve using information and communication strategies to influence foreign governments, organizations, and individuals to achieve U.S. objectives. It's also used on their own people, probably. These operations can include tactics like disinformation, propaganda, and psychological warfare to affect the beliefs and behaviors of target audiences. Historically, it appears that there is no line they won't cross to achieve their objective, including staging cryptid attacks and locally known, I want to say, entities, cryptid creatures, demonic entities, vampire shapeshifters, zombies, and yes, potentially a Russian Yeti. We're going to talk about that today. Today we have Dr. Dennis Carroll joining us to discuss government staged cryptid creature attacks in worldwide PSYOP operations, from a shape-shifting demon attack in the Philippines to the Russian Yeti at the Dyatlov Pass. We have several cases of either documented and known cases of this or suspected cases. And we're going to refer to some of my remote viewing data today with some of these cryptid attacks that might not have been fully cryptids. Isn't that wild? It seems like this is kind of a reversal. Seems like we're talking, this is upside down day, okay, backwards day, because we're usually saying what was cryptids and the government's trying to cover it up, okay? Now we're like, what's the government and they're trying to cover up with cryptids. So go figure, y'all. Right side is up and upside's down and whatever. It's really wild. But could some of and this is why I'm wearing my Dogman gear today here. Could some of these Dogman attacks in the United States, the alleged Dogman attacks, could they have actually been PSYOPs? Okay, and maybe even, I want to say, assassinations and stuff that were blamed on Dogman. I'm not saying it was Dogman, but it might have been a PSYOP. All right, well, to help me talk about this today, I do have our good friend, Dr. Dennis Carroll. He has over 40 years, close to 50 years of experience in the paranormal, and he is an author. He has a wonderful YouTube channel. It is called Hunting the Shadows. Also, he has a Patreon as well and a channel membership on his channel on Hunting the Shadows. He has a show tonight, so y'all better be there in that chat with me. Please help me welcome to the show my good friend, Dr. Dennis Carroll.
Good afternoon. All right. It's I was going to say it's always night down in the rabbit holes. Okay.
It's dark down here, isn't it? It gets dark when we start jumping down portals and rabbit holes and all that. It's like Alice in Wonderland sometimes over here. And it's hard to tell what's up, what's side is up and which side is down sometimes. Like we live in the upside down, and today is no different. You know, I was talking about, in the intro just then, that it's almost like upside down, that a lot of times we say, well, maybe these cryptid attacks are being covered up by our government. In these cases we're going to talk about today, it's actually things that maybe the government did that they blamed on cryptids. Okay, so I don't know. What do you think about all this, Dennis? Do you have an opinion on the cryptid attack PSYOPs?
Well, I think, our government is not only good at, fostering misinformation, but it is also good at misdirection. They get to try to direct your attention to certain things that they want you to see and what they don't want you to see. That is the way they work. And of course, you got to remember one thing. You can attack your enemy's physical being, their bodies or whatever the situation is. But the best way to get your enemy is to attack his mental capacities. You go after his mind and do with it. That's the battlefield too, by the way, not just the body, but the mind as well.
That's right. And I see it every day. I encourage people not even to watch the news. If they want to keep a good, clear head on their shoulders, just turn the TVs off. That's what I'd say. I'm not saying don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, but don't let it consume you, so to speak. Just don't, because we have many different psychological operations that are going on, and a lot of that does include the media. Okay, the media, and I've seen it creeping into the cryptid communities as well a little bit. And I'm going to be very upfront about my opinions today, okay, on this. And this is all for entertainment purposes only. But being a cryptid field researcher, I didn't go public for over 10 years on my research. But when I did, and I did start being public, I started getting approached by a lot of people, Dennis, a lot of people. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've met wonderful people, wonderful researchers online and in the field. But I've also been approached by people who weren't so honest about what their intentions were with what I'm doing in the field and the cryptids and things that they had done. And it does help to be super psychic, okay, and to be a remote viewer. I can kind of pick up on when people aren't being honest about things, okay, and to say that some of even the cryptid community, because let's be honest about that too. Bigfoot and Dogman are very popular, Dennis. Okay, werewolves, all this talk. People are having encounters with these things at I don't know if it's a higher rate than ever, but a lot of reports are coming out, and you got to wonder. You got to think, with all the popularity, especially online, there's going to be some infiltrators when we talk about a PSYOP, right? Within even the online communities and whatnot. So I have been approached by people who I believe to be potentially plants.
I found out a long time ago, Jessica, as an investigative researcher, and I've even had governmental interference on several of Bigfoot cases that I've been on. I found out a long time ago that a lot of people are not what they really seem in some of these fields. They are plants, or as the terminology goes with the CIA, they are called spooks. They put these plants in for two reasons. One, to maintain their surveillance of you and to see what you're up to, what you're doing. And they integrate themselves into these communities for that purpose alone. But also, not only that, but to manipulate things as well. It's one thing to spy on people, but then it's another thing to manipulate them. And it's almost as if, and I think it is in a certain way, that it is an ongoing experiment in the social consciousness of our society that they are interested in. And a lot of this stuff, I think, goes down to that. They are very much like illusionists, a very famous illusionist like David Copperfield and some of the others. They can get you to see exactly what they want you to see. And that is very, very valuable to be able to do.
That's right. Well, and as you start growing, let's just say as a content creator like myself, okay, I am not a huge channel by any means over here, but I've got a really decent following with the best people. Listen, it's all about quality, not always quantity too, right? We have the quality viewers over here on our channels, and a lot of very smart people, a lot of very independent thinkers too. You know what I mean? And I think that's why we're all kind of gravitate to each other over here. But once you start getting a bigger following, there's you don't want to get and I know this show today is going to be one of those shows that's kind of off the rails, where there's nobody controlling what I'm saying right now. Okay? There's never anybody controlling what I'm saying. Okay. But this show might even get a little censored because of it, Dennis. Okay. And we're just going to have to keep an eye out for that. But once you get a big following, if your channel's not getting shadow banned, like some of ours are, I have questions about the people whose channels are not getting shadow banned, okay? Because we start putting out these thought-provoking subjects, and I've never called people out before about like, hey, I think that this person might be a plant, or some of the guys that I go out in the field with were like, oh, that's a fed. Somebody had contacted me, and I think that's a fed, or whatever. But it is true, and they do try to infiltrate once you get a platform and you have a voice and you're able to talk about the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, that's the way operate. As a matter of fact, they have a term for this, and it's called social direction. In other words, they can direct things to the way they want them to be, and that's all part of their game plan in these kind of instances. And I think they want to see sometimes, Jessica, just how far they can push the envelope on these things. Yeah. But definitely, if I were to put somebody, and believe me, I've talked with FBI agents. Okay, I know them well. And they about their plants all the time inside certain organizations, inside certain groups that are together. They're always looking not just for terrorists, but it is a form of spying. Definitely. They know exactly what's going on in the Masons. They know exactly what's going on with other secret societies and satanic churches and so on and so on. They make it their business. That is their business to know these things.
Oh, man. Listen, I don't want to offend anybody, y'all. Okay. I don't want to offend anybody that's watching today. This is only my opinion on stuff that I say, and I keep a very open mind, y'all. Okay. And I just ask everybody watching today, keep a very open mind too, because when we do start dealing with things like secret societies and even people in law enforcement, I know you've been in law enforcement yourself, Dennis. But I often put the question out there, like, why are there so many people in law enforcement and in government positions and stuff in the cryptid field? Now, I walk side by side with a lot of people that are in those positions that have those kind of backgrounds. I worked in government too at some point, but I worked for a state agency, okay, and it was for women, okay, had nothing to do with any kind of cryptids. Of course, I kept my cryptid stuff quiet when I went to work. But you start thinking, it's like, okay, well, I think that a lot of us, and I know these people, I know a lot of people just personally, and I don't think anybody has any kind of agenda that's like goes against like just getting the information out there and learning things on our, amongst each other and trying to figure out some of these mysteries. But then occasionally there'd be like one person will creep in and you're like, okay, somebody's got, maybe when I said plants, okay, I said plants earlier. And I've picked out a couple people. I'm not going to say who they are. Okay, that I think that could be plants, even on the online communities and stuff like that, because you can see where they start trying to take the narrative sometimes. And even people that contact me and send me information, it's like, well, I can see where they're going with this, and they're wanting to sway me in one direction, to kind of get me. Don't look here, look over here. Don't look what this hand's doing. Look what this hand's doing. And this is the kind of stuff might want to get out to the public. Well, I think it's time for
Jessica, who watches the washers.
Yeah.
If you work for the government, you're definitely under their scope very much, even more so than other people are, because they have to keep an eye on you, definitely, if you work for them.
Yes.
It makes sense when you think about it in one way, but it's not very nice in another way when it goes that way. But they have to go in to these groups and societies and all, whatever names you want to give them, to find out exactly what truly really is going on there. Just take from the Masons for just a moment. I'll pick on them. A lot of people have said that there are two kinds of things that you look at, and that is when any kind of an organization like the Masons or something very similar to it, you look at the facade on the front of it, but what is really going on behind it, in the background of it. So in other words, even these government agencies put up a front. What you see about the real CIA is not the real CIA in the background. What you see about the FBI up front is not what the real FBI is in the background. All of these things are very distinctively, shall we say, hiding what they're doing, because that's their very nature. If something is very secretive, just like the Masons and some of these other things, it makes people more curious about what they're doing. So they have to really go deeper underground, to keep that scrutiny away from them. And so it makes sense when you think about it,
Oh my gosh. The Dragon Collective, thank you. But I get my best trusted news source is TikTok, so don't listen to me. I'm just kidding. That was a very sweet comment, and I do appreciate that. But yeah, we do have things like Project Mockingbird and stuff like that, and the MK Ultra, and if you just listen to the radio for a day, like I kind of got stuck on the road at some point, and I didn't, my Wi-Fi wasn't connecting to my truck stereo for some reason, and I was driving home from the conference this weekend and going Bigfooting, and so I had to listen to the radio. God forbid, y'all, I had to listen to the radio, and it was the same song over and over again on every station. They Not Like Us, y'all. I can't even tell you how many times I heard that song, and I just turned the radio off. I'm like, I can't listen to this crap, because it was the same repetitive things over and over again. I know that's not why we're here today to talk about that, but it's the programming. Okay, a lot of programming, and let's switch it back over. Let's go back to, let me course correct here. Let's get back into the cryptids and the local legends and lore, because if people are able to be programmed in some kind of way, okay, by repetitive things that are going on, everything is weaponized, Dennis. I've noticed everything is weaponized. We talked about mermaids being weaponized, dolphins being weaponized, Bigfoot being weaponized, Dogman being weaponized. Okay, well, let's look at it from a psychological standpoint as well. Local legends and lore, especially when you go into I mean, let's say the Appalachians, for instance. Okay. Imagine if you were targeting someone, okay, and it was a whole group of people, and you're targeting them, and you needed to make them scared and to run them out of somewhere. Well, what would you do if they have a deep-rooted fear for a local legend? Let's say Spearfinger, for instance. Okay, I don't think Spearfinger would be like a Dogman or a local werewolf or a pack of werewolves. I think that would be a perfect weapon, a perfect psychological weapon to really mess with those people, is to go in there into that community and start terrorizing people with dogmen and werewolves, right?
It's already in the social consciousness, Jessica. See, it's already been seeded there, so they can use that. It can be, implemented that way. Definitely, that's the way that they work. They take these things that are well known. They're not going to take something that a lot of people don't know. That's why they work on the belief systems of people. They work on the superstitious side of people. The legends that may be local surrounding that, and like that very famous case we're going to get into shortly about what happened with the Philippines. And I read about that many years ago, and it is a fascinating thing when you see how they went about doing this. They were using the local legends, the superstitious and religious beliefs of these people as a weapon against them. Okay. The government is good, just like you talk about the mermaids, the dolphins, whatever you want to talk about. They're excellent people at turning whatever it may be into a weapon and weaponizing it, because that's just the way they work. I mean, that's their mentality. That's how they carry these things out. When you give the government some, just like if you gave them AI, they would immediately say, okay, now how can we make a weapon out of this? How can we use this to our advantage? That's what they're always thinking about. They're not thinking about, hey, maybe this is something good for the welfare of humanity. Maybe this will help people do this. They don't think that way. They don't think like you and I think. They think completely different. And
that's right.
They already know this stuff. Dogman, Bigfoot, and all this is already in the social conscious. Thanks to us, we've put it there. Okay, we talked about it. I mentioned on a video I dropped last night for my members that once upon a time, if you talked about this stuff, they were ready to call the guys with the white coats and to put the coat on you that doesn't have any opening in the sleeves. They were ready to put you somewhere. Now you can talk about this, and it's in the social consciousness now. And definitely they're going to want to weaponize that to their advantage.
Yeah, they are. And I just want to say, I want to make a statement. I am good friends with some Masons. Okay. Some guys, I do shows with them too sometimes. And my grandfather was a Shriner. Okay. So I never talked to him about that though, before he passed away. So I don't know. I have no information on any of that stuff. Okay. But I do know that he was when he was younger and stuff. So, it is what it is. Okay. It is what it is. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I just know what I know, and I know what I see. Okay. And I see, I've been seeing a whole lot the past few years when it comes to PSYOPs, or like, y'all know what FF is, right? I don't want to say it. I know it's hard to say all the stuff on YouTube, but when things are just not what they seem. Okay. Not crisis actors and stuff like that. But back in the 1950s, okay, now I don't remember exactly when did Dyatlov Pass happen. Now, the Dyatlov Pass case, that happened, I think, around the 1950s, right? Dennis, do you remember that?
No, I think it was like in the, I think, mid to late 50s, I think, somewhere in there like that. Yeah.
I think so too. Okay, so around the 1950s is when the CIA, okay, was created. Okay, that department came to fruition around that time. And that's actually around the time that the Dyatlov Pass people, okay, the people that were, if y'all remember that was actually, if you watched me for a long time, you'll know that was the very first remote viewing target that I ever did, was the Dyatlov Pass incident. And there were a group of college students, Russian hikers, went up into the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, and they were going to go on I think it was like a week-long journey, snowshoeing, I think is what they call that, right? And they were excited about it. I mean, all the pictures of them looked like they were so happy and having a good time. And they were supposed to have checkpoints where they'd come in, every day or so they had to check in with, I don't know if they radioed in, I'm not sure how they did it, but they checked in with a base camp or a base somewhere. They didn't, but at one point they didn't make their check-in. And so a search team was sent out to go check on them. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Mm-hmm. I think, there was something else besides what was going on there. And they used that as an opportunity. They said, hey, maybe we can do something about this or have it directed the way we want it directed, put it that way. That's the way these guys look at things. And you're talking about the CIA and all that being created about then. By the way, all of this stuff was created by George Washington. That's how far back this goes. Whatever name you want to call the CIA, whatever it is, we've always had this spying apparatus in place since the days of George Washington. He helped create a spy network, by the way. But anyway, getting back to the Dyatlov Pass thing, that was a tragic thing, I think, that happened. And I think it may have had, we don't know to this day exactly what really took place there. And I think a lot of your remote viewing thing answered some questions, definitely. It's very interesting what you came up with on that. But I think they saw that as an opportunity, sort of like, we talked about earlier about experimental things that they're doing. They're using the public sector as an experimental field for things. There could have been a lot that was going on there that they wanted to utilize for certain purposes. And we do know the KGB at that time. That's who they were. The KGB and all that were deep into psychological stuff. We know the experiments they did. You remember the ones they did with this sleep deprivation experiments that went on? And
Tragic.
et cetera, and some of those, what we would call the earlier Medusa type experiments that were carried out. The list goes on and on and on. It's very much like Project Mockingbird, Project MK Ultra, and all these other things. They're doing the same thing in Russia. Okay, they're doing the same thing in China. Don't think that without a doubt that's not what's going on. So I think they saw this as an opportunity to do some stuff they wanted to do.
Well, okay. Well, I think that this deals with a cover up. Okay, I think it deals with the cover up in this case, because my remote viewing data, when I was this is a blind target, when I was looking at whatever this was, I was hearing words like commandant. I remember that in that data. It was very much military based out, but it was Russian. Okay, Soviet Russian. The KGB would have been involved in this, obviously. But if the KGB probably had another name back then, for all I know. But nonetheless, the hikers did not show up to their checkpoint, and so a search team was sent out. And unfortunately, I think there were 9 of them, and they were all deceased. They were frozen to death. Some of them were frozen. Others had. I'm sorry, I know that was should have warned y'all. I was one of the people there. They had, there were 3 different sections of 3 different groups where they were found dead. They had torn through their tent and took off running. Some of them didn't even have clothes on or shoes on. In the middle of the night, they were all huddled in one tent together, sleeping. Something scared them. They ran. And so here's what happened. I was tasked with all the 4 different targets for this. And it was an overall, like, general, what happened to them, what scared them. That was the first target. What was the scenario? And then the other 3 targets were each group, the different groups of people that were found dead. And at some point, 2 people were found, then 3 people were found, then 4 people were found, or something like that. Okay. I think maybe there were 7. I don't know. I don't remember how many there were, but anyways, so they were found in different stages of decomposition. Some of them had frozen to death. Some people were wearing other people's clothing and stuff. It was just really odd. The last 4 that were found, like after the search party found the first 2 groups of people, there was another group that wasn't found for like 2 months until the ice melted. And they were found like way off in the woods. And all 4 of those students, those people were found, they looked like their bodies had been dropped from the sky, like they had been either dropped from the sky or been in a bad car accident. And one of the woman that was there, her tongue had been removed, and they were cut up like cattle mutilations. Okay, and so I actually did a deep mind probe on the woman. I remember that, and it was rough. I felt, and I was picking up not only on humans in the environment when they were attacked, and they were attacked. They had, I think Dennis, what happened was they got too close to something and they got run off. Okay, and they got attacked, and the military came after them. I did detect an ET presence as well. And I think that wanted to send a message. Let's just say they got off track. They weren't supposed to be there. They had encroached on a no trespassing zone because they got into a blizzard. And here's what happened. In case people aren't familiar with this, they found a camera of some of the hikers, right? And they said they found this camera.
It's my own.
And this was on it. Okay. So I just want to say through the remote viewing data, because this was one, I don't know if this is one of my targets. I can't remember. I do believe that I don't believe that's a real Yeti. I think that was somebody maybe dressed up. This is my opinion. I think that there's a chance that was a man dressed up, and there's a local legend there of the Russian Yeti. And I think, in my personal opinion, through that remote viewing data, I think that was a cover up and blamed all on the Russian Yeti. That's my opinion. What do you think, Dennis?
I think my own personal view on that. I think there may have been something. I agree with you. There may have been something ET about this, and also though it could have been the government as well, and both of them working together. Mm-hmm. Put it that way. It could have been something along those same lines. And if these people got too close to knowing some of this stuff, and the knowing is what will get you unalived, okay? And they got too close to knowing some of this stuff, and they decided to take action, but they had to make it look. And there's that other thing we talked about earlier, that misdirection thing going on here. They had to direct your attention away from what really happened and make it look like something else. Why not put a guy out there in a snowsuit and get a good picture of something like that, Bigfoot there, and say it may have been something like that when it was something completely different altogether? Just like the Masons we mentioned earlier. Okay, if you're a Mason, you don't know about what's really going on in the real, true organization of the Masons. Okay, you're only involved in one section of it, and that's the way it goes with these governmental things, Jessica. A lot of these people, these soldiers and all that, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what the real Psyops is in the background or what's truly going on and what they may be trying to do to cover up these things. So if you get too close to the truth, it's very much like I remember what was said at Roswell to that lady that gave her deposition to that Air Force guy, and he was a colonel, I think, or something like that. And she gave her deposition and he said, okay, now you need to forget all of this. You need to forget every bit of it. And she said, why? Why would I do that? He said, because it's a big desert out there. They'll never find your body.
Oh, God. Well, that's a stern warning right there.
Pretty obvious statement.
Gentle warning.
Maybe you get a little too close to something,
Yes, that's a gentle warning. Oh, what's up, David Pardue? Thank you for being here today. That was a creepy picture. Okay. And it's been up for debate for many, many years, ever since this happened. That picture, I think in the diary, the people that died there, they were talking about, and who's to say that their diaries weren't messed with as well? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just being super conspiratorial today. Okay. Don't mind me, y'all. But I'm just saying, everything is it's up in the air. It's up for debate, right? I don't take things at face value. Like, I don't take what's presented to me and just accept it anymore. I just don't. I have to think about it in different ways. I think that's important for all of us to question the narrative when it comes to stuff like this. And I think that local legend of that, beast that, everybody feared in the area, the Russian Yeti, I think that was a wonderful cover for whatever happened to those students up there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these supposed photographs of Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff like that are obviously people in ghillie suits doing some of this stuff. They're seeding this in. I call it muddying the waters. They want to keep the waters muddy so you can't clearly see where you're walking at and this stuff. And that's the way they like it. They want to keep it soupy there. They want to keep it, ambiguous to the point where you don't really know what to believe anymore and you don't really know what to see anymore. Just like as researchers, we have been impeded by AI. We don't even know what real photographs are anymore. What we're seeing is the real thing or something else. And that's the way they want it. That's the way it works for them in this world. And it's all part of the illusion, the smoke and the mirrors, And when you understand what the things like they did in the Philippines and some of these other places and where they're coming from, they're using people's psychological beliefs and religious beliefs and all. Here's what these guys said, Jesse, and
Okay.
this is a true statement. Here's what they said: we could put a holograph of Jesus in the sky and make you believe it's the second coming.
Oh, interesting. You say that.
They said that.
That's interesting you say that, because I was actually going to bring up Project Bluebeam today, and the fake alien invasion and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking about before the show today. You brought up the Miami Mall aliens, that whole case, and a lot of us have been sitting around waiting for the alien invasion to happen. That's probably not real, but it might be real with a little bit of fake mixed in.
They know that. They know that. That's what you're thinking. They know that.
Right.
And they can use that. Guess what? Surprise, surprise. That's a weapon too. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the way that works.
Yeah. But, they want to keep the confusion going. That's right, Mark. Mark Green's in the chat. What's up, Mark? They want to keep the confusion going because it makes us question ourselves. It makes us question everything around us. Now, I said to always question things, right? But go within. And if something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Okay. If you're part of my hunt club, you'll know that I'm always telling everybody, go with your gut. Okay. Go with your gut. No matter what happens, we got to learn to tune into our internal, our BS meters on the inside. I guess that's the best way to describe it, is to tune into yourself. If somebody's, like I told you, I was like, there's people that have contacted me, let's just say, about wanting to go do a Dogman expedition or something, or like a Bigfoot thing. And I'm like, well, these people just came out of nowhere, and something just seems off about it. And so, that's because probably something off. Maybe it's somebody's trying to infiltrate into my team or something, find out what we know, or fill our minds full of stuff that's not true, or, make us look this way when things are over this way. And so it's gotta, I keep my circle tight, y'all. Okay. And it's pretty tight for a reason.
That's what they say a lot about con artists. Okay. They can con you into believing something because it's what you want to believe. Okay.
That's
so
right.
You gotta remember that. It's very important. They know what you may possibly want to believe. That's a weapon too. Okay.
Manipulation. That's right.
And if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't. Okay. That's just the way that works. Yeah. But they understand that this is a psychological thing. This is a psychological makeup of human beings. This is the way we think, the way we see things. I've said this over the years as a paranormal investigator too. It was never my job to make you believe anything. That's not my job. My job is to collect evidence and give you, the evidence and show you that. But it's your job to believe it. You're going to believe whether however you are persuaded to believe. That's the way people are. If you and I, Jessica, had our pictures taken today with Elvis and Bigfoot, nobody would ever believe that. Okay. Nobody would ever believe it. But we would, because we were there. We know it. Okay. But they wouldn't. And that's just the way people, the belief systems of people work. And guess what? The government knows this very well.
Yeah, they do. Well, so I know where to find both. So Elvis is in Arkansas. He's a preacher now. And Bigfoot's out in the woods. And some of the girls in here I got some of my Dogfoot clan in here today from the weekend. And Candace was at the Georgia Bigfoot conference too. Hey, Candace, thank you for being here. But we can go find we can probably find Bigfoot. Now, taking a picture of Bigfoot, I don't know. That's a whole other story when it comes to us out there in the woods. But yeah, you are 100% right. And so when we say psychological operations, y'all, our psyche has been studied for centuries. Okay. And human behavior has probably pretty much been the same since the beginning of time. Wouldn't you think, Dennis? So it's kind of easy to figure out what to do. That's why we have bread and circuses, right? And so people, they keep the masses in a state of confusion, first of all, and looking one way when there's what we need to be looking at is over here. Okay. And to keep us distracted. It's all distraction. It's all control. It's all information warfare. Okay. But anyways, so let's get back. I'm going to go back again. We're going to circle back around to the cryptids that are being used for psychological operations. Okay. So we got the Dyatlov Pass. Y'all heard my opinion on that. I do believe that now, not to say there's not a cryptid up there. There's not a Russian Yeti. I think there is. I'm sure there is. Why wouldn't there be? But I think that they use that, and maybe potentially even this picture right here. Now, I can't say this is a real Yeti or a human. I think it's probably a human That's my opinion, in a suit or something. But they found this on somebody's camera. But when I remote viewed that, it was humans that did the damage to those kids out there, okay, that ran them off and whatnot. I think it was humans. So let's go to 1950 in the Philippines, Dennis. This is a cool one. I think you're going to really, really enjoy talking about this one because we're going to talk about a shapeshifter out of, and this is like an umbrella term. Okay. It's called the Aswang. I think is how you pronounce it. The Aswang. It's an umbrella term for various shapeshifting evil creatures out of the Philippines, out of their folklore. Yeah. What?
Yeah, the swing is sort of a well, it's I'd say your catch-all kind of demon thing in the Philippines. It is considered to be something like partly a skinwalker, partly vampire, partly demonic. It is the people in the Philippines really fear this thing. They will even lie in their houses on dark, humid, hot nights with all the windows shut tight because they believe this thing, all it needs is a crack to get into your house and do what it's going to do to you. It is also even thought to extract the embryos of babies out of pregnant women to devour them. This is a bad boy. And everybody in the Philippines knows or is aware of what is called the aswang.
The aswang. I'm glad you know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce anything, apparently. I love it. I would be a little worried about this too. Knowing what I know, seeing what I've seen, I'd be a little bit worried about this thing as well. And the story goes, before I get into the story, thank you, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. I missed your super sticker earlier. Thank you so much for that. And it's good to see you here, Dave. Thank you for being here. And also while I'm doing it, let's see. Also, Maureen gifted 5 Cryptid Huntress memberships. So thank you, Maureen. That was very sweet. And congrats to everybody who got those. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so knowing what I know, okay, I'd be a little upset thinking that, it's all I want to say fun and games. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm going to give you a real life scenario of something that happened to me as a researcher. Is that I was called up by a park ranger, a state park ranger in Georgia, who was upset because all these people were having Bigfoot reports out of his park. And there were 9, and within 30 days, he said 9 reports. And I didn't know whether, it wasn't like on top of my priority list to get out there, right? To him, it was a big deal. To me, it was like, oh, I'll get there when I get there. Okay. But then he called me one day and was like, hey, we've had a Bigfoot related death. Please come out immediately. And I did, because then we got the death factor. This is a danger to society. We got a menace to society out there, apparently, and we needed to go check on it. So me and 3 of my teammates went out there, Keith, Craig, and Bruce, and myself. We spent the weekend looking for this deadly Bigfoot out there. And the story, everything got all muddy and everything with the coroner's office and everything. It was a wild investigation. I've talked about it before, but it was that death that really got us out there, because that's when it gets real. Okay, well, in this case, back in the 1950s, we have this supernatural demonic entity that people have been terrified of for centuries, a local legend. And in 1950, that is back when the CIA, the 3-letter agency, was created back then. And there was a man named, let's see, what was his name? Lieutenant Colonel Edward Lansdale, I think, was the guy who gave the directive to send a unit, a group of people, okay, that were in the agency, some military potentially, over to the Philippines. I guess there were some rebels. I'm not sure exactly what the political climate was back then in the Philippines, but there was a vested interest in getting these rebels out of this area. And some of the civilians were actually protecting them and hiding them out in a village. And they knew that. They had the intel. And so they sent, this is one of their first big productions over there with this agency. They sent some people over there, and late at night, one night, they snuck in and they got 2 of the guards and they unalived them. And one of them, they put puncture wounds on his neck and they drained all his blood and they hung him upside down. And so that's how the story goes. It was part of the rebel group, apparently. And when the next day, when they saw that body, they knew that this entity had done it. So everybody got scared and they ran off. And they were gone, and they left the area just like the choreograph was planned. The choreography was all planned for that. They were like, well, we're going to do this. We're going to scare them. And this is documented, Dennis. This is a documented operation that happened out there. And so it was based off a local legend. Okay. So the purpose of me talking about all this today, Dennis, for the audience, if y'all are wondering, why are we talking about something that happened in the Philippines? Well, if this happened in 1950, imagine what they are doing today, first of all, what they have done today, and what is happening on the U.S. soil today, knowing what we know with all these projects and things that are working against us, and that's my opinion for entertainment purposes only, what are they capable of? And with us going out there with all these alleged reported Dogman attacks, Bigfoot attacks, cryptid attacks, how many of those are real with real cryptids? And how many of them are a bunch of psyops, Dennis? I know that's a lot, but what do you think?
Well, that whole operation was carried out for one reason and one reason only: to get the local surrounding populace to believe that these rebel guys were so bad that even the swang was hanging out with them, and that they were sort of like cooperating with this thing. So that blackened the name of this, rebel group. That had a psychological effect as well. They think that, if the swang is hanging out with these guys, we don't want anything to do with them. So that was a big PR publicity thing against this rebel group when you look at it that way. And yes, like we said earlier, this is what they call social direction. They direct the social consciousness the way they want it to go. And yes,
That's
if
right.
they did that then, imagine what they could do now with holograms, with drugs. The list goes on. And I think that may have been what happened at the Dyatlov Pass, is the fact that they may have used some kind of drugs on these people too, or some kind of inhalant. We think there may have been some kind of inhalant that was used against them, some kind of gas. But whatever the situation is, they have definitely refined their processes since then. Absolutely. And these holograms, and what we talked about, the thing that happened at the mall in Florida, or what may have took place in Vegas, they think that could have been a psyop too. That's a possibility, because these are experiments, social experiments for these guys. We are their guinea pigs, okay? And they're going to see how far they can push the envelope to see how good it works and how well it works, and adjust the program to the way they want it to go.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. Absolutely. And also, I was just looking, I have some other pictures. The whole, the ashwang that we were just talking about, it did remind me very much, and there's different types of them. I said it's an umbrella term for a bunch of different shapeshifters. And one of them is a witch, and which reminds me 100% of Spearfinger, one of my favorite Cherokee legends out here. And, I don't think that the story of Spearfinger has become weaponized yet. Okay, yet. Over here in the United States, not to say it won't.
The swang is a premier shapeshifter. It is very much like the Spearfinger that we've talked about before. Can take on, assume many different forms, very much like skinwalkers, who can look like either coyotes or crows and ravens, wolves. The list goes on and on. So can the swang. The swang can also appear as your next door neighbor, and you'll never know it. And matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a show very soon with Chantel about Carolina cryptids, and I'm going to talk about some of those, like the boo hag, which is very much like the swang. It's very strange how these things crop up. These cryptids crop up from place to place, from thousands of miles, and culturally significantly inseparable from each other. It's wild. It's wild stuff. But the government knows about all this stuff. Like I said, they contacted me years ago wanting to recruit me. Who else have they done? Who else have they done that with? They know all about this stuff. They are, I would even go so far to say they're probably experts on it by now, because they definitely know what they're doing. And they have so many different auspices. And guess what? They have tons of dark money behind them to do this stuff with. So definitely, probably what they've got would probably blow our minds to know exactly what's really going on with that. And like I say, they may even they have and there's rumors about this, that they have certain drugs they can put in the water supplies that will make you docile, that will turn you completely psychologically different from what you are. They might even turn you into some type of a zombie like thing, and we've talked about this before. There is a drug out on the streets right now. It's called walk and rot. It turns you into a rotting zombie, folks. Okay.
Oh my God.
I mean, how much wilder
That's
can
horrible.
you get than that? Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, I remember back when, several years ago, they had the whole face eater thing out of Florida. It's like bath salts or something. It's not funny. It's horrible. Okay. But it is what it is. And that's what's being pumped out into our streets right now. And so y'all just be careful. When I say keep your head on a swivel, keep your head on a swivel. And if you see somebody whose head's spinning around like a real swivel, run. Okay. Just run. Terry Brown, thank you so much for being here. He says, always love being here for a live show. Great host, guests, and chatters. Thanks all. Thank you for being here, Terry. Y'all go subscribe to Tales of a Sonic Voyage over there. I appreciate that very much. I wanted to, I saw I have this picture right here, so I wanted to bring this up right quick because the topic is so broad, actually. But sometimes I wonder, are they creating creatures to use for their benefit? Okay. But I know that sounds weird. Is the government, potentially military government, maybe special agencies of some sort, actually creating some of these cryptids to go out and terrorize us? Okay. Right. Like I did that remote viewing target of the giant of Kandahar. I was seeing that there was some kind of DNA samples for cloning purposes. But we also Barry had given me this as one of those blind targets, the chupacabra. And the chupacabra reminds me a lot of this Ash Wang, the shapeshifter, because a lot of accounts of it has a long, like proboscis, I think is how you call it, a tongue, and they suck the blood out of their victims. And that's what the guys, our government 3-letter agency guys who went over to the Philippines to enact this operation to make it go down, they knew that, and they made like vampire marks or whatever they did. They put 2 holes in the side of that victim's neck and drained all his blood out to kind of emulate a vampire or whatever that shapeshifter is. But I mean, how many people have been the victim of something like that? And so maybe they needed to create something like this, because I do believe this is a creation. This escaped from a lab out of Puerto Rico in 1994. I've remote viewed it. I got the same data as other remote viewers who had remote viewed these blind targets. That is a mix of like dinosaur DNA, great aliens, mammals, reptiles, all this stuff. Some people would say, what is that, an abomination, or whatever. But it's like that they make these things to use for curb potentially, or to go after people. Dennis, I mean, am I reaching too far with all of that, or am I on target? What do you think?
I think you're getting very close to the mark on it, because I think they also have the auspices to do this stuff. They have the DNA samples. They have the dinosaur DNA samples. They've got all that on hand to work with. And if you're really going to control something, Jessica, it makes perfect sense. At first, you need to create it. And if you're the creator, you usually have a lot of control over something like that. And that doesn't surprise me at all. Why would they be collecting Bigfoot from Mount, St. Helens? Why would they be collecting these things? Why? And we've heard of this happening not just there, but in a lot of other places where these cages have been seen on helicopters taking these cryptids off, even Dogman, et cetera, et cetera. And Chupacabra supposedly has been done the same way. Why do they collect these things? They're getting the DNA of them. Is that what it is? Are they manipulating these things? It would not surprise me a bit if they're not taking it that way. And that's where a lot of these things. And here's an interesting question I've got for you.
Okay.
You were big on dogmen and stuff. Think about this a moment. How many of the dogmen out there are the natural ones, and how many are created?
I think it's probably half and half. I think, I don't know. That's a good question, but I think that we've got all this cloning. Okay. We've got genetic hybridization. Okay. We got like hybrid programs. We even have a dogman breeding program, allegedly. Okay. All sorts of wild things out there. But I mean, how much of that, I hate to say it, how much of it could be a big old psyop too?
You know,
Okay.
when you look at this hybridization, goes back. How far does it go back? It goes back to ancient books about the Nephilim and stuff. They were deep into hybriding stuff like this. Man and animals together. You know, you had goat men, and you had minotaurs, you have centaurs, you have satyrs. The list goes on and on and on and on. This is all ancient stuff. It's nothing new. Okay,
Mhm.
it's just got a new spin on it thanks to the government.
That's right. Retro band CT. If I'm seeing that, I need my glasses. In the Ruth Montgomery book, she channeled the lab creation of mixing humans and animals back in Atlantis. They call them things. This goes back to the beginning of time, y'all. It really does. Genetic splicing and the hybridization of humans and animals and all that kind of stuff. It's not new. It's nothing new. And so yeah. Like I said, we really don't know what all is going on and what all they're really capable of. And so I think that, like I said, local legends and lore and things that are scary to people who live in certain regions, those will be weaponized against them at some point if they have not already.
It's very important, Jessica, I think, that we know and realize that what we know about right now, the science that we know about, the theories, the theorium as it's called, what we know about, the government is 100 years or more ahead of us.
Yeah, that's true. Technology and government, everything. It's way ahead of what we've been told. Yeah, the genetic experiments. We've talked about that with the Dulce underground base. That was an interesting show actually. That I did. I think Barry came on with me for that. But there's abomination is the word, right? For a lot of this, and I feel bad because it's like, well, what they're creating didn't ask to be created. You know what I mean? So it's just really sad what's going on there. But
here's something else we need to consider too. Not only things that they may have created, but things that they may have taken out of different dimensions, thanks to vortex or whatever name you want to call it, that they have opened doorways. They have opened to these things. Who knows what's in those containment chambers down there, and who knows what they've got on hand and what they might turn loose on the public if they ever want to. So this is an interesting and a very deep subject with so many different rabbit holes. It is a broad subject. And how many different directions this may go in,
Well, I mentioned choreographed a couple of times. I've used that word several times today for whatever reason. I don't know. I didn't plan to. Things just come out. I don't know. But choreographed is interesting because Andrew asked, is there a well-known event in which there was some cryptid attack? Absolutely. The one that comes to my mind the most immediately is the attack at the LBL of that family. Okay. Back in 1982, I believe, or 81, there allegedly was a family who was attacked and ripped to shreds. And they were going to go camping for a weekend. I think it was a holiday weekend potentially. And they even have they call it the KILL site, I think is what they call it, out there at the LBL. And they've got berms up. And from what I understand, you can't really it's hard to get to it. Maybe. I don't know. I've not been to the LBL before. And for those who don't know, that's the land between the lakes. It is I want to say national park, or I don't know if it's considered national park or a recreation area, but it covers Tennessee and Kentucky. And it's got thousands of acres. We got a couple people from up there in the chat today. Cryptoville's from up there. And, but allegedly there was a family that was attacked and unalived, and it was gruesome and brutal. And that was given to me as there's been several people that have gone missing. A lot of people have gone missing. Mauled to death from up there, hunters. It's really sad. But I was given that alleged family attack as a remote viewing target of a while back, several years ago. And I did see what appeared to be two dogmen or it looked like hyena type dogman or something. It was weird. But they attacked that family. And I do believe that happened. Now, the question to me is, it's not whether that happened or not, because I believe it did happen. There's a lot of eyewitness testimony. I think it happened. The
Possibility,
question,
Jessica. I think it's a possibility that some of these dogman sightings may be werewolves related.
yes.
The late Linda Godfrey thought about that. I talked with her several times on that subject. About the Beast of Bray Road and all that. It may not possibly be dogman thing. It doesn't sound a lot like dogman activity. It sounds more like werewolf type activity, because that's what werewolves do to you. They tear you to pieces and devour you. Dogman has not been known to hang around eating people too much, I don't think. But the interesting thing is, I would think if the government had a werewolf on hand, or ability to have werewolves, they would definitely like to see how they would operate in certain circumstances. So yes, that would be that far fetched to think about something like with the LBL and that went on there.
Yeah.
You got to remember something else about the werewolf too, of course, and we won't get into that today because it's another subject for another time. But he is a absolute 100% supernatural creature. Okay.
Yes.
He doesn't follow the guidelines of normal animals. It's not going to work that way with him. And he would be hard to control in that circumstance, under those circumstances. So I can see them trying to control something like that and not being too successful with it. That may be what had happened in some of these instances. But, Dogman just appears to me in many instances to be more of the, kind of a guy that says, you don't bother me, I don't bother you. I've actually been sitting in tree stands and watched, I told somebody this the other day, sitting in a tree stand and watched a cougar walk by me, okay? And he didn't jump on me or try to attack me. He was just doing his own business. It's a lot of these animals, I think dogman may be very much like that. If they're not threatened by you, they're not going to bother you. Most of the time, that's what happens with bears. I've run into bears in the woods. Okay, that's never a good, pleasant thing to happen, but it does happen. And if they don't see you as a threat, especially if it's a mama bear, okay, if they don't see you as a threat, you may get out of that situation, okay, unscathed. But werewolf don't look at you that way. He looks at you as a target to kill and destroy. That's what it's all about. And you got to understand what the mindset of some of these things may be, and how the government can utilize something like that, on how hard it would be to control something as well.
That's right. Yes. And Mark says werewolf is an assassin. Okay. That is so cool that you said that, because in that data for that LBL alleged massacre that happened, I was picking up on what I guess it could have been a dogman, I guess, but it was trained assassins. It literally said trained assassin in my data.
If I were your worst enemy, Jessica, I really hated your guts, I'd send a werewolf after you. Okay.
Uh-oh. Well, don't do that.
I
know
know
to fight it.
The job done, definitely.
Well, I'd send a werewolf back too, so it'd be double werewolf fight. Clash of the werewolves.
Werewolf war. Yeah.
I know. I'd send my werewolf security team after it. Don't worry, I'd stop it. Okay. And all the pale crawlers. I tell you, whenever I get rich one day, there will be signs. I won't say anything, but y'all know. I will have werewolves surrounding me everywhere I go, but nonetheless, it is interesting to think about it, and like Barry says, it's food for thought as to the extent that our government, to agencies, to whatever's going on out there, whoever is in charge of, whoever's behind the curtain, as they say in that on the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, whatever's going on. When people say we live in the Truman Show, I think we kind of do in a lot of ways. And so I think that cryptids are a big part of that. And they are obviously being utilized for, let's say, assassinations, like Mark had put here. Werewolves could be an assassin. That has come up in my data before. For some of these targets of people who have been unalived by packs of wild dogs and stuff like that. There is that aspect to all of it too. Now,
Well, it is a well-known fact in voodoo, Jessica. You can send out zombie assassins to take care of certain people. The list goes on for different things you can utilize. You have to look at some of these government agencies as maybe realizing that as well. That you can send out certain things to accomplish certain goals that you want done.
yeah. Oh yeah, and if they're and that's another thing we talk about some of these Dogman reports and stuff, and I've done a pretty good bit of remote viewing on some of these Dogman sightings, and and that's something that we talk about a lot too. Is like, well, you and I talked about how Dogmen don't seem to be really violent against people. When people give us these types of reports of seeing a Dogman, it's usually just something that's standing on the side of the road, or something that chased their car, or something that walked up to their property, and maybe it took down a cow or something, but they're not really hurting humans, but it's the werewolves that may be a little more violent, like you say, Dennis. Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot of different routes we could take with this conversation today, but there's just I don't know. I think that there's naturals, and I think that there's organic is what I meant to say, like organic, and then there's lab made and stuff, and I think that those are like maybe the clones, and maybe that's what we're dealing with, the ones that are chipped and collared, potentially that agencies and governments and whoever are creating in these labs, because there's that one case I did out of Missouri for DA Roberts, and it was that Dogman in his video. There was something in a video, it looked like a Dogman peeking out from behind a tree on a promo video that he had made a couple of years ago. He had me remote view that, and I stumbled across all sorts of like an underground facility with labs, and the Watchers was in my data, like whatever that was like security, kind of like keeping security over that area. It was really wild. But yeah, if people don't think that our government is not working with cryptids in some way, whether they be real or they just being used as pawns, or if it's all fake and they're blaming it on cryptids. Absolutely. When people are getting taken out, so to speak, you got to think again, because I think it does happen. That's my opinion.
Well, here's something to think about in reverse. I watched a movie not long ago called Troll Hunter. Great movie if anybody wants to watch it. Trolls are another one of my favorite subjects, by the way. Anyway, the funny thing in this movie was that when trolls would attack and destroy people and destroy stuff, the government would come in and leave a dead bear, and they would blame it on the bear. It would be a bear attack. Oh, it was a bear attack, and not a troll. And I said, I thought, what if that works in reverse? What if something else happened there and they blame it on the cryptid? Mm-hmm. And that's a very distinct possibility. Like I say, what we're talking about here today, Jessica, is the illusion they want to create, the direction they want you to start thinking in. This is mind control to a certain extent, okay? This is brainwashing, whatever name you want to call it. But like I said earlier, they call it social direction. They get you to believe what they want you to believe, and you don't question. It's like I said, a good magician gets you to see what he wants you to see, not what he's really doing in the background.
That's right. So, I mean, that's why coming from a real boots on the ground approach here, and I got some people in the chat today who have been out in the field with me, okay, plenty of times. Some of them just recently, and we're out there. We're really experiencing real cryptids and stuff like that. Okay, this stuff does happen. It does exist, but it's also getting blamed for there being the scapegoated. Dogmen I've even said this on shows before. I think dogmen get scapegoated for when people go missing and when bad things happen to people. And I don't think it's always dogmen. I don't think it is. I don't think that it's always cryptids, but sometimes they get blamed for it. I mean, that's just an easy scapegoat.
It makes you wonder how much Bigfoot's getting blamed for things too. Yes. The list goes on. And it is a convenient excuse that could be used by the government. It was probably something having to do with Bigfoot. We do know this, and we were talking about it the other day. There are government manuals that go back to the 40s and 50s that talk about Bigfoot. They actually have sections in these manuals about Bigfoot. The government, this is federal stuff, folks, okay? This is nothing local. This is federal stuff they put out. The government knows without a doubt, although they may laugh at us, And they may, call us names, crackpots, conspiracy theorists, whatever name they want to give you to discredit you. They know without a doubt what the real truth is.
Yeah.
And that's the bad thing about this, Jessica. They know the real truth, but they don't want us to know it.
That's right. Well, there were scientists in Germany who, during the World War II era, were experimenting on reanimating corpses. And I have had Jimmy Payne on the show, along with James Rink, came on a couple years ago around Halloween. We talked about vampires and reanimation of corpses. And these are experiments that have been going on for a long time. There's even the voodoo practice, right, of reanimating corpses as well. Well, what did our CDC do back about, what, it was 15 years ago, I think? Maybe it was around 15 years ago, 14 years ago. This is like in, what year was it? 2011. This is 2011. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, that is a government agency, y'all, put out the, I guess it was the Zombie Apocalypse Preparedness 101 Zombie Apocalypse Manual. Okay, now it was supposed to be tongue in cheek, right? This is around the same time that The Walking Dead was probably pretty popular back then, from what I can recall. I don't know, all sorts of zombie movies and shows. They've been around for a long time. Zombies, right? Cult classics. But they put out this manual, and it kind of made a stir, right? All over, I guess I want to say all over the internet. I don't know. I was definitely on the internet back then. I was trying to think, when did I start my Facebook page? My first Facebook page was like 2007. I was on the internet back then.
Here's something for everybody to think about. Moment. Okay, that drug I mentioned earlier, the walking rot zombie drug, is actually a drug used by veterinarians. Okay, it is a well-known drug that they use, and it has been available only by breaking into vet offices and stealing it until now.
Okay.
Now it is available with fentanyl and all that coming across the border in different places, and China is behind a lot of that as well. But listen to this, okay? Think about this a minute. This drug affects the mind, the brain of the animal that it's injected with, whether it's your dog or cat or whatever the situation is. It affects them. Could this be the real true origin of mad cow and wasting disease that we hear about? We see these poor deer out in the woods turning in circles so they fall down dead. They have a wasting disease. All of this is a disease of the mind. So is mad cow. Did you know it is theoretically possible for a human being, if you eat the brain of a diseased animal? Do not eat brains, folks. If you eat the brains of a diseased animal, you could get something like mad cow disease. It will turn you into a zombie. The government knows all of this stuff because they originated this stuff. So, yeah, they would know well that there is a possibility of a real zombie apocalypse. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, they put out a manual. The CDC put out this manual it was like basically what to do in case of when the zombie outbreak happens, when the zombie apocalypse happens, literally, y'all. And I know that I am a proponent. I'm an advocate of getting prepared for survival situations, prepping with like food supplies and medical supplies and anything that you might need. Okay. Toiletries and everything. Stock up. I've always said stock up. Get water, get supplies, get weapons, get ammo, whatever you need. Okay. And don't tell nobody you got it. Okay. And all that kind of stuff. I can be a survivalist, y'all. Okay. I am. And I'm just prepared. What do you call those? Doomsday preppers? Okay. That was a kind of a big deal back in this, I guess, during that time too. Even now, we should all have some form of preparedness for natural disasters and zombie apocalypses. Because the real zombies actually may not be like zombies like from The Walking Dead, which I was hanging out with Sonia Thompson this weekend, who's a zombie from that show. Okay, let me give you a little example before we go today. All right, so I did it. I don't remember if I remote viewed this. I might have. But there's a video of a man that there's two guys in a truck, and they take their camera phone and they see this man. He's slinking up the side of the road, and he's like, bleh, and he looks like a zombie. It's a man. He's wearing a white, I call them wife beater shirts. Okay, those tank top shirts and some pants. And he's crawling. He looks like a zombie, and his body's all contorted. and they're like, hey, and he's like, hey, and they say, what's wrong, man, or whatever, and he's like, it's wild. I'm not doing a good impression, right? But however, he looks like a zombie. I was told, okay, and I don't even know if I should tell y'all this. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. I was told by somebody that actually was not just like a by chance encounter with that man. That was actually from a training video. Okay, now I don't know. Like I said, this could be a plant or somebody that told me this. For all I know, I don't know. So use your discernment, y'all. I'm only going to repeat what I was told. I was told that was actually a training video, and that was a real life zombie. And after they cut the camera off, they took him out. Okay, and that is literally what I was told. Okay, and now whether that's true or not, it's for educational purposes only. That I'm even just saying this because I don't know. That's just what somebody told me. And but nonetheless, it could be a real zombie.
That always reminds me of that famous line from that zombie movie, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. They kind of, they knew a lot about this stuff. And, you can, referring back to what you mentioned earlier about the reanimation of dead bodies and all this other stuff, the zombies and all this goes deep into demonology, too. That's a show for another time. But all this necromancy is connected with that. And I know the government, without a doubt, is interested in demonology. They know a lot about demonology because I think they're in bed with demons to a certain extent. I think they've got a lot of power from that. So all this stuff is connected in that way, in that fashion. And it is mind-boggling when you start trying to wrap your mind around all of this stuff, how deep and how far and wide-ranging it goes.
That is right. That's right. And we're not only being programmed to the possibility of all this being real, and I guess that's a good thing. I guess because I don't know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. But we are just pay attention to the fact that we have been programmed for a long time. And Third Eye Tribe has a great point here. It says the first zombie games, and that's like video games, were made to simulate soldiers. Now there's a whole generation of people who are almost programmed to fight back. That's true, and also to being desensitized to shooting people as well. And I think that has a lot to do with those zombie games, and even what is that, like San Andreas?
The seeds have been planted. The seeds have been planted in the social consciousness. They're there to be used for certain purposes, and they're going to use that definitely. I don't see them bypassing that. They are very much like the demonic I mentioned earlier. They are opportunists. They take the opportunity for things like that. They're not going to pass it up. Absolutely. Zombies are a perfect opportunity for things like that. And that social consciousness. Everybody knows about zombies thanks to the movies. And, I have to wonder how many of these Hollywood movies are not influenced and directed by certain government agencies for these purposes as well.
All of them. Are you kidding? They all are. And it's hard to even really watch movies anymore because I'm one of those people that's like, oh, that's a psyop right there, because you can see once your eyes are open to all of this, you can't unsee it. We've got on the blue blockers. Okay, the blue blockers, the they live glasses, and once you take them on, you never see things the same way ever again. Everything is obey.
It's like you said earlier, the one thing this world needs today, and we all need this, and we need to cultivate it, and that is discernment. We need to know what we're looking at is real and what's not real, and how we're being directed or misdirected. We need to understand these things. We need to understand what we've got a hold of misinformation. There's a government office of misinformation. I know that without a doubt. And there's definitely a government office of misdirection. When I say misdirection, in other words, they're directing you to the way they want you to go, the way they want you to think. This is all a part of mind control, folks. It's what the government does best.
That's right. That's right. And so the purpose of this show today is to connect some dots and put it out there for everybody to see that these psychological operations have been going on using cryptids or the lore behind cryptids or any kind of entity since at least the 1950s. Surely way before that too, but it is documented that this happened in 1950. which is really, it's really sad, and it's kind of wild. Like I said in the intro today, they will stop at nothing to execute their, and I mean that I don't mean it like that, but to execute their mission. Okay, to do whatever they need to do to change things to go in their favor, and by they I mean governments, agencies, whatever. And so just be aware, y'all. And it doesn't mean that that these cryptids aren't real. They are very real. Okay, but they're also scapegoated, and so just be aware of that. Okay, well, this has been a fantastic show, Dennis. I really enjoyed this one. I don't know if I've said too much today, but it's okay. Dennis, thank you so much for being here. Can you do you have any final thoughts on this? First of all,
well, I think we have to be very careful what we believe anymore and what we know the true facts to be. And and here's what we're going to have to be, folks. We're going to have to be like Jessica and I have been all of these years, investigative researchers. That means you don't just look at it superficially and say, okay, it's that or that. You've got to go deep into it, go deep into the rabbit holes and investigate and understand and find the real true facts behind these things, not what certain people tell you, or not, especially not what government agencies tell you. Be very, very discerning with what information and stuff that you believe. It's very important to your survival. Absolutely.
survival. That's right. Yeah, because we ultimately just gotta survive, y'all. We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. And so when that zombie apocalypse happens, I'm gonna be thriving in it. That'll be like the highlight of my life. I'll be like, oh, it's here. I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm just kidding. But nonetheless, y'all, this has been a really cool show today, and I hope y'all all enjoyed
Rise
it.
and shine, as they say in the zombie world.
Rise and shine. I know. I love that Zombieland movie. That's a good one. There are some good zombie flicks out there, some good zombie shows, and it's all predictive programming too, right? In a lot of ways. So, well, tonight you've got your own show over there, Dennis, with Hunting the Shadows on YouTube and Patreon. Y'all, please go over there. 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. Dennis, what are you talking about tonight on your channel?
Tonight I'm going to be talking about how to see the unseen. We're going to be talking about how to open yourself up to see some of the spiritual aspects of what's going on around us. And then Friday night on Paranormal Point of View, I will be doing a show called Vampires I Have Known. And I'm going to talk about some of my vampire cases and stuff that I've had interest on that. And also, I will be Thursday at 1 o'clock, I think, p.m. Tomorrow, yeah. I will be with Chantel on Aquarius Rising Africa. We will be talking about the cryptids of the Carolinas. I'm going to talk about some you may have never heard about. I'm going to definitely talk about Boohag and, of course, Plat Eyes. And so you might want to tune in for that. And also Sunday, I will be appearing with the Duchess, Danielle Diva Borzon, on her show. And also, my books are available on Barnes & Noble. Yes, I have books. I got about 4 or 5 books out on Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. Just look up Dennis W. Carroll. And you can reach me if you need to contact me for anything at denniswcarroll.com. I have a paranormal consulting service. If you have any kind of paranormal problem, whatever it may be, you can feel free to contact me at any time. And that's at denniswcarroll@gmail.com.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, you guys, please go over and subscribe if you haven't already to Hunting the Shadows over on YouTube. And Dennis, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's always so fun having you here. Thank you. Yeah, you guys, this has been great. And y'all, please stay safe out there, y'all. Stay safe out there. And I know everybody that's in my chat today, everybody that's watching, I know y'all already knew all this. Okay, we're not teaching y'all anything new. We all knew about it. That there are a lot of psyops going on, and so just be aware. Okay, just be aware. And if you need any kind of go within. Okay, if you have a question about if something doesn't feel right, we don't have to look outside of ourselves for all the answers, y'all. Okay, if something doesn't feel right, always go with your gut And that's going to give you your answers right there. I promise. And if you want to become a member of the Hunt Club, I talk about this kind of stuff all the time over there on my videos on the Hunt Club. And speaking of which, y'all come see me tomorrow night. I'm going to have a wonderful remote viewing show. I don't know what the target is yet. I have 2 targets that I've been working for Barry. I'll probably find out what those are today, and we'll set a show up for tomorrow. It'll be exciting. I can promise y'all that. And I'll be back on Saturday as well on the Hunt at 10 p.m. Tomorrow night, I'll be back at 8 p.m. Eastern. So thank y'all so much again for being here. And thank you to everybody who gave me the super stickers today with Dave Scott, Space Out Radio, and Terry Brown. Thank you so much for that. And Terry Brown, oh, you did too. Thank you, Terry. That was very sweet of you. I appreciate it. And also, Marian, thank you for gifting all those memberships to the Hunt Club. So five lucky people. Yeah, 5 got memberships today. So thank y'all so much for all that. And all right. Well, you guys have a wonderful day. Please stay safe out there, y'all. Just stay safe. That's all. I'm sending all my love and light to every one of y'all out there. And have a great day. Come back and see me tomorrow night. And I'll see y'all over in Dennis's chat tonight. All right. See you, Dennis. Bye, y'all.